my work, I explore different topics, mostly related to the way we inhabit the world and the world inhabit us, and also topic related to time scale, topic related to the kind of like material connection between us being here and how we basically engage in our everyday life, because we're living in a world which is getting more and more digitalized, and I'm kind of interested in getting back to something more substantial and going back and looking at actually what we stand on, and I end up quite interested in geology for this reason, and looking at rocks and looking actually at what we can learn from them. A big part of my work actually happened outside, and a lot of my work also relate to scientific research, and eventually I end up collaborating with a lot of scientists, and due to this collaboration I also start to use some of their methodology and techniques, and field work is basically one of these techniques. So there's not many artists actually doing field work. Very early on I started that because I believe in the strengths of the encounter, like encountering a place and seeing what a place can tell you, or like there is so many stories, and we normally telling stories about places, but places have their own agency. And what I try to do is actually to get to this moment of a fruitful dialogue with a place and this encounter. So while doing that, I end up traveling a lot for my work, and the studio is not the place in Berlin, but the studio is basically the world. And being in the landscape is extremely instrumental for the way I actually develop my pieces and my artistic research. Yeah, in 2011 I went first to Iceland, and I actually was quite impressed by this particular landscape and this particular encounter, because everything that I knew or that I thought I knew there was not really working anymore. So I would, you need to kind of reframe the way you see a place, because the normal things that you use to orient it, like a tree, a house, like things which actually create the depths of a landscape and also give you a sense of scale and also a sense of dimension, scale, I think. They don't exist there because everything is rocks and ice, and I had to kind of recalibrate the way I was seeing the world in order to go through this particular place. And this was such a strong, or it led me such a strong impression that I started to actually engage way more with this particular type of landscape, and I've been very interested in looking at glacier and the cryosphere. Why is that? Not only because they're disappearing through climate change, but also because if you think about ice is a mineral, like a rock is, but ice is a mineral which actually acts in a realm that we can sense, in a time frame that we can sense. And I think that my work often try to make sense of this different time scale. And obviously, while working in this particular environment, I start to be interested as well of topic and question related to how anthropogenic induced disturbance, so-called climate change, and how action or inaction having huge impact in places which could be very far from where the action actually happening. Yeah, and then start to investigate and also relate to this question. And then because I was very often with scientists, glaciologist, climatologist, it kind of like become almost, it feed my work. I strongly believe that art is a form of language which acts on another level, which is maybe not always cognitive, but which actually touch all the senses, touch, you you can read an article about a certain problem, let's say climate change, because that's kind of the question. So, but you cannot, well, you just read it, so, but you can't sense it. And actually, art can deal with things which are way more abstract and bring them into a space where people can connect. So there's like this strength of actually creating a situation, creating exhibition where people can immerse themselves and question themselves also of their relation to the world and in the world and what I'm doing here. Because I think, for instance, here in the show, it's not like only object being exhibited, it's you being exhibited to an object. And I think that is that's probably one of the strengths of art, is this capacity of addressing things which are extremely abstract and complex to comprehend, but somehow precipitate this complexity in simple form that you can encounter, that you will be able to reflect upon. The piece, The Lion, that's the title of the three pieces, they are heliogravure. Heliogravure is a photographical process from the 19th century, which is basically a copper etching, which is being used to print an image. And it was very instrumental for the dissemination of images. So it's very instrumental in the beginning of, if you think about visual culture, we rely on photogravure to actually spread images into the world. And I like to relate to that. Then I was invited on a scientific expedition around North Greenland with, I think, 12 scientists, all working in different fields, from geology, climatology, microbiology, like a lot of different fields. And they were doing their field research and experiment on the way. And I was actually invited to go along. Actually wanted to try to describe the place through another lens and to kind of like bring the materiality of this very remote region onto the picture and to ask myself, what is an image and how do we perceive reality? And we normally perceive in reality in three colors, which are the primal color, and we're building the world the way we see it, and we all believe that the way we see the world is the way everybody's seeing the world, but it's not the case. There's a lot of other species which only see in 2, there's some which see in 8. And that was something that I knew and I want to react on. And what I did is I basically tried to document different places, but instead of using this 3 primal color, to take substances from the landscape and create pigment out of these substances. So taking a piece of granite, a little bit of moraine sand, a little bit of clay, and then using this material to create pigment, to create a color palette which relate to the landscape. Then I digitalize this color palette, this color profile, which were made out of this mineral that I collect on my way. So when I would first print them, and then we scan them, and with that we create a new profile, which we're not relying on the color that we're using in digital photography, but we're relying on the color made by the place itself. And then I took these pigments and I print the images with it. So you have this kind of mise en abîme of like the real materiality of a place and the way ones will experience it and see it. And that's a different way of seeing the world, and that was kind of what the work was trying to address. You almost have this feeling of like a layers of a geological powder just coated. There's something extremely sandy, which really transport the material reality of the place onto the exhibition space. And that was kind of what I wanted to achieve. The whole exhibition is actually looking through the lens of the geological world and actually trying to see the way we are standing on something, but also relying on the things we're standing on. And I think that there is a few work which relate more like to the way we have been extracting and what does extraction mean in terms of like fossil fuel extraction. So we have heliography, which are photographs made with tar from the tar pit around LA, which depict like oil field. Also in California, we have a film-controlled burn, which is a cosmic journey through 3 locations: an offshore oil rig, a coal mine, and a cooling tower of a coal-burning power plant, where you will actually fly through this location in an imploding firework, but you have this feeling of like going back to the, like the beginning of time, like the Big Bang, but then ending up at the kind of end of the industrialization, which is today. Then we have the soothsayer. I'm sitting next to it. That's a lump of anthracite coal, which is suspended in a stainless steel mattress. On the other side, we have another film, and beneath it all flows liquid fire. That's a fountain, but a fountain has been set in fire, but you have a cohabitation between water and fire, the 2 elements that normally we will actually oppose to one another, but I was kind of trying to reframe them in one picture. And the very end of the show, it's Vertigo, and that is some sort of a dream machine made out of an onyx boulder where the viewer will be invited to lay down and dream and look inwards to their connection to the geological world.